Okay, here we go. Um, so I don't know how many people will actually watch this, but this is something that I got an idea of from another YouTuber that I watched. His name is Seth Demore, and I'll put that his channel in the chat. Um, I think he's helped me learn a lot about running recently. I like to think that I know a decent amount just from doing it so long, but he gives some pretty good insight, and he really makes me stop and think about some things. And it's always good to kind of like strive to learn more about something that you're passionate about. And for most people, you know that I'm passionate about running. So um, something that he did in one of his daily vlogs a little while back was he went through and kind of looked through his training block for his race that he was going to peak for. So he was going to run the uh, Hamburg in Germany marathon coming up, or actually it's past now. A couple 2 weekends ago, I think April 19th. And when it got canceled because of the coronavirus, he turned that into a virtual race, and I ran a virtual half marathon there. So my training block was meant to go until the Cleveland Marathon on May 17th, and that's not happening now. So that was kind of my end point. So I want to go back through and take some of his advice and um, kind of look through what worked, what didn't work, what went well, and everything for next time I plan out like a quote unquote like season for myself. I don't usually plan a training block like a season. Um, quite as formally as I have for myself for this one. I have for like the cross country team and the track team and everything, but not as much for myself. Um, because when I started, obviously, I was running on my school's cross and track team, so the coach planned that. Um, our coaches at the time, barring one of them, um, weren't the best, but they told us what to do every day, basically. I wish I would have at the time when I was a high schooler asked why a little bit more, and I think I would have had a much better head start, kind of planning my own running. But then I ran for OU for a year, and their coach definitely knows his stuff, but I was one of, if not the slowest runner on the team, and I didn't get much adjusted for me running a like 18-ish minute 5K at the time to a we had a couple people under 15 minutes for a 5K, which is way faster. So it wasn't differentiated very well. So that's something that I try to do a little bit better at as a coach. And that's fair that he didn't do that because I wasn't on scholarship or anything. I was just a walk on. So there was no real reason for him to have me there except for if I enjoyed it, which I did. I got faster, but it wasn't perfect. Could have been better. And then after that, I ran on my own, just kind of um, willy nilly, I guess. Just kind of felt like I knew I would kind of progress and eventually run more and more, but there was no reason to what workouts I did, really. So I think my times for the 5K, which was almost all I ran a couple years ago, plateaued a bunch. And then I quit running actually, or at least to how I know it now, like 99% less than what I do now. Um, when I was struggling with grades and stuff in school. So I'm glad I'm back into it now that I graduated from college and everything. Um, and then when I started teaching and coaching, I did Coach Wilson's workouts because I was also racing 5Ks and stuff. So it wasn't until maybe the last year or so I started planning for myself. And even in the fall, I did just a modified version of what I had the cross country team doing. Um, so I had to get into this. I have ran one marathon before, but I definitely didn't know nearly enough about it. It was a trail marathon. I didn't even know what a trail marathon was. I thought it was just like a cross country race for 26.2 miles, and it was way harder trails. It was like deer paths for the whole time. It was crazy. I vowed to never do one again, and I still don't know if I'll do a trail one ever again. So this was going to be on the road. Anytime you do road versus trail, it's going to be a lot easier on your legs and a lot quicker times. Um, I even put a poll up on my Twitter, like if I should try for the marathon again since this didn't happen, or if I should go back to the 5K because I haven't got a personal record, a PR in that for so long. I like training for the marathon because you kind of get that like hardcore feeling, like when you do all the miles and everything. But I would get, how do I want to word it? I would get much more satisfaction from breaking I think like over 9-year-old personal record. I really only want to do a marathon to try to BQ, which Boston qualify. You can get like automatic entry into the Boston Marathon if you run a certain time at a certain age. And for me, that'd be 3 hours, which is 6:52 a mile. So that brings us into the first week. I started keeping the training blocks. I'm going to be flipping back and forth with my Excel sheet. It's pretty boring, to be honest. I'll just kind of read off the important things. I ran for a week or two after my break after cross country before starting into this. So I had about 2 weeks of just kind of easy running when I felt like it. And then I started into this. So week one was 36 miles, which, to give some ground of if that's a lot or if that's not very much. Up until this year, I was probably around the 30 mark recently. Marathon for sure. Like I said, I really only want to do it if I can Boston qualify. That would be awesome. However, if I PR'd in the 5K or if I ever broke a 5-minute mile, I would borderline be in tears because it's something that like I didn't think would happen again. So 36 miles is up just a little bit from where I started in the fall. I planned to get to like 70 miles at the end, but you want to build up slowly. So it was all base mileage, except for one day I did 9 that week. So I called it a long run, but eventually you'll find that turns into just an everyday. And I did one that I called a marathon pace tempo. Basically, I went out the door and tried to hit those 6:52s and just see how that felt for a couple miles. And it was 3 miles. And at that point, it didn't feel super terrible or anything. But I definitely couldn't have held that for even a half marathon at that point. So there was a lot of work to be done. I keep track when I run too of what shoes I wear to kind of figure out what mileage I'm at. So at the end of cross country, I got a pair of New Balance Fuel Cells. I have a newer version that I just bought because I liked the original. The ones I had were way more beat up than this, but I don't know if you can see it better from this end or like here. It has like almost like a fin that goes out. The fall before this one, I had a stress fracture and I was in a walking boot because I keep hurting my 5th metatarsal on like the side of my foot. So I think this is helping me there. They're a little bit speedier shoe. And then, see if I have them with me. And then these old Ultra shoes. I had never worn this before this point here, but you can tell these ones are really beat up and everything. The camera probably doesn't pick it up, but these are like worn flat at this point. This is my first time with a 0 drop shoe. I don't know if it'll pick it up, but it says 0 drop there. What that means is from heel to toe, this is like completely flat inside here, whereas something like this actually slants a little bit from heel down. It definitely puts more pressure on your calves than your knee, so it saves you from runner's knee a little bit. So that's where I put in most of my miles on those right off the bat. I have written down in my calendar that I had like some 2 out of 10 Achilles pain, which are from those ultra shoes because they take some getting used to. And like I said, I ran in those in cross country season this fall a little bit, but not a ton. So week 1, I hit 36 miles. Week 2, and I planned for a 20-week kind of build up into this, which would have been my longest like season training block up to date. So with this one, I hit 45, which is probably a bigger jump than I would recommend, but I did hit 50 once, I think, the following fall, so it's not completely foreign, but I've been running for, I don't know, like 13-ish years or something, at least off and on. I wouldn't suggest someone new jump 9 miles in a week, unless it's maybe like 0 to 9, but and you're athletic already or something like that. For the second week with the 45 miles, I did that marathon pace tempo again. It was a 9-mile day, but only 6 were at that pace. I hit 6:45 pace, so even a little bit faster than I needed to, but I knew at the time in my head that that wasn't sustainable, even though I called it marathon pace. And I wore some faster shoes for that too, some Saucony Fast Twitch shoes. That's kind of what I think those are the pair I raced a half marathon in the previous fall. And then I also had a long day, so this one was a little bit more in line with a typical long run. I hit double digits, so I hit 12 for a day. All I have written down next to that 12-mile day, I don't remember it too much. I kind of do. Is just worth. I'm glad I did it. That knocked some rust off, I guess, and opened up my eyes to the longer running. It was like a rainy, muddy day, and I was just running like Lake Ridge up by the school, like repeatedly in the track and around the school, tiny loops for 12 miles. Week 3, I hit 35. So I remember going into this, I tried to do like 3 weeks of like build up and then 1 scaled back as like a rest week. So I was going to build from 36, 45. I was probably going to try to hit like 50 or something. And I could just feel already it wasn't happening. I remember talking with Coach Stratton and him telling me like, be smart about it, scale it back down. So we only hit 35 this week. So for this whole block, for the most part, you'll see that I go up 2, down 1, up 2, down 1. And that's a lot more conservative than I have been in the past. But I made it to this point, so it's good. I got some new shoes this week, I can tell, based on what I marked down. I got a new pair of those Ultras. I got them here. Same shoe, just different color. These ones are pretty old now at this point because that was like January when I was marking these down. Pretty flat too, but a little less beat up. I tie my shoes overly tight. You probably can't see it in the video, but these shoestrings are pulled so long from the shoe. These are a little bit better. So that's kind of a sign of if you're doing that, you might need to go down or up a size. I actually went up a half size and I kind of regret it because I can feel myself pulling these shoestrings tight too. But it's okay. I've already replaced these for the upcoming block. So my workouts for this week, besides just the easy running days, I did a fartlek run. So that's back and forth, like fast, slow, or something like that. And I did 4 minutes of hard running and then 3 minutes of easy, kind of back and forth. And that was a total 8-mile day. Now, whenever I say something like that, that includes warm up, cool down. So I probably didn't do that for all 8 miles. I probably did it for 4 or so of it. But those were in the Ultra shoes, those flat 0 drop ones. So it's hard going fast in those shoes. So that's a little bit of an extra workout. I had my first completely no running day of the training block, which I think helped keep me healthy. And then I also raced a 5K, however, at the end of the week. So I had kind of an off build up to this. It was the Cambridge 5K. It was freezing out. I had like icicles forming on my mustache at the end. It was crazy. I won that one in a close race on a slow course, but with a time that was over a minute slower than the 5K I had just done at the end of cross country. So it kind of shows you how much faster you are when you're doing those 5K specific workouts versus like marathon training. And I ran 19:33 for that, so that's all right. I would like to be closer to breaking 18. Week 4, I built it back up and I hit that 50 that I kind of preluded to before. And the 50 was even with taking another off day this week. I probably wouldn't have typically done that had I not raced a 5K on my like off week, so I kind of had to play around with it a little bit. I built in some strides this week, so for those who are starting into like 5K running, but who are at a point where they can handle going out the door and running 2-3 miles, strides are basically short bursts of speed, usually at the end of a run, to kind of keep your legs going quick or kind of used to the idea of moving fast. My main workout of the week was another of these marathon pace runs. You'll find that marathon training doesn't have the variation that 5K training does. There's not a lot of like set intervals on the track or anything like that. So this one, I was out at the Lure City Trail and I was able to hit almost marathon pace. I was like 2 seconds off, 6:54s for 8 miles, but that took almost everything I had to do that. Those were in this, I got these around the same time as the second ultras. They're called New Balance Yellow Slush. They're nice shoes and they're really light and everything, which I prefer in my shoes. You can see I wore them enough to where get them dirty and everything. But this kind of heel, I don't know what they call it back here, where your foot slides in, something didn't sit right with me. So I still wear them every now and then, but I can't go that hardcore in those shoes. I even have it down here. I had left heel pain for the majority of the run. And I put that this workout took a 9.5 out of 10 effort. So if I wasn't even hitting that pace for 8 miles, I saw a long way to go. And then I also had another long run this week of 14. I remember I was at my parents' the morning that I did this, debating where I could run 14 miles. And I think what I ended up doing was 2 like around my apartment, drove to the fairgrounds, and then ran in town for the other 12, kind of zigzag like down a street all the way to the end, back down a different street all the way to the end. So that was one of the first times I experimented with like fueling during the run too. Whenever you start running over, I've heard like an hour and 15-ish minutes, you need to fuel during the run to kind of replace sugar, carbohydrates, things like that. Even some have like caffeine, and only certain things sit well with my stomach. So I think the Gatorade like chews during that, and it went okay. Week 5, so this is the last week of January going into February, I hit 52, so a little bit more. That's probably more typical of what I would ask like an athlete to do that I was coaching. I had a 13-mile day where I was in those yellow slush shoes again. So they're fast shoes, but it was an infinity run. So what an infinity run is basically a progressive tempo where we just get faster and faster like each mile. And I have marked down that we went during the actual workout portion. So besides the warm up and cool down, we went 9:30, 8:35, 8 minutes, 7:35, 6:48, 6:35, 6:32. And I have written down that I was gonna try to do 4 miles at like 6:20 pace, and that's what we ended up doing instead, because I wanted to. The rest of the team was doing it. I wanted to be able to pace them for it, so I kind of adapted and changed there. The last couple were about there, and then my long run this week, I kind of took it down a little bit because I ran all 7 days instead of just 6. to an 11-mile day, but I ended with like a 6:40 and a 6:30. So I was trying to stay fast at the end of the run. Week 6, you'll notice I went 50, 52. I'm coming back down. This week I only hit 19 miles with no day being more than 4. I was really sick this week, and I had to take multiple days off work, and I left work early the one day I thought I was good to go back, and the whole week basically was like, all right, it's not happening. That's one of the more sick, like with I guess a cold or some flu or something that I've been. So that was first week of February. There's no workouts or anything that week. It was all just a couple of days of easy miles. After that, week 7, I started feeling good again. I have written down on the Monday, I do my weeks Monday to Sunday, that I was still like a 4 out of 10 sick. But I did get to 50 miles again this week. So I had a fartlek run where we did 400 meters fast, so like a lap on the track, and then 100 meters really slow, so like very light shuffle jog. And I did my 8 with the indoor track team at 6:15 pace. And then I remember we had one of the runners had to come do it late, so I ran with her and did 8 more at 7:15. So it was a little bit slower than like what I was trying to pace for, but I was double the workout, so it got work in. This is where I tried to do 16 miles the next day, and I really shouldn't have tried to do a long day, especially the longest yet, right after a workout that I doubled. I don't know why I thought I could do that. I really just wanted to get it out of the way. But I had to stop and start repeatedly. I had a lot of knee pain, even though I wore those Ultra shoes, which are supposed to take that away. So they probably saved me from like an injury. But the next day I had to take completely off to avoid injury. But I raced again that Sunday, and I got second this time. The guy I barely beat at the previous one in Cambridge beat me by a couple seconds this time, and I was faster though, 18:58, and I had 12 miles that day. So they tabulated the results by hand instead of like electronic timing, so it took forever. So training for a marathon, I sat there and just ran like a mile, came back, and hey, are the results in yet? Nope. Did another one. So I got a bunch of miles in that day. I don't know if I have them over here though. I wear here. I'll go get them real quick. It's for my knowledge anyway. These Nike LT4s, I think is what they're called, are my go-to 5K shoe. Those are some of my favorite racing shoes I've ever had. They're so light compared to any other shoe, and you feel fast putting them on. So I have like my miles split up between those, and I ran all those extra miles in a different pair. Week 8, built up to 60. That was the first time I hit 60 since 2012 or so, probably. So a while. I had just kind of a nonchalant 13-mile day, a nonchalant like 10-mile day. And then I had a day marked down as a long run of 15, where I was going to try to hit 13 at that 6:52 pace. And it didn't happen. I did 3 for like 3.5 at that pace. And then I tried to take like a different gel thing, and it hurt my stomach. That was the first run I tried to do in these Nike Next Percent marathon shoes. These are the coolest shoes I think I've ever owned. I like those pink ones a lot, but I'm glad I spent the money for these. I probably wouldn't have, but I won some money on FanDuel, so hopefully keep those nice for at least one more race. They really don't last very long. They're already breaking down, and I've ran less than 100 miles on them. but that's not their purpose. I guess it's just to go fast. So I did like 3.5, and it didn't happen. So I did all the miles still, but it was really slow. I did like 2 more there, and then I went back to the school from the Lure City Trail and did like 3 more, and then to Zanesville and did the rest. It was rough. After those build-up weeks in week 9, I came back down. This is getting into late February, early March. It's all base and recovery miles. Kind of make sure that I didn't get hurt. And most runners deal with injuries like every training block, and I was like perfectly fine up to this point, besides that little day of knee pain. So I wanted to keep that going. Week 10, so this would be halfway through the training block. So the first week of March, I hit 60 again, and I went and did mile repeats for 12.5 miles total. I did only 5 of the mile repeats though. Remember, the rest is warm up, cool down. I made Luke pace me because he was off for, I think, spring break. And I pushed the first one, 5:58, and then I was like dying. I hit 6:11, 6:13, 5:56. So I knew the last one was the last one. I picked it up a little bit more. I got a little discouraged from that. I have written down that if everything goes perfectly, I'd like to hit 5:50s for all of them. And kind of my B goal was 6 flat for all of them. And if you realized, I only hit even the B goal for 3 out of the 5, so it wasn't really happening then that day. I did put in, like I said, 12.5 total, so my legs were tired and everything, but I wasn't up to speed yet. And I hadn't been practicing that, to be fair, so that's more of a 5K workout. It may be even like a 10K workout. That Wednesday, I did another 12, and that was another infinity run. So remember, that's like progressively getting faster the entire time. I have that we did 7 of those 12, where we went 8:30, 8, 7:30, 7, 6:30, 6:15, and 6 flat. So I hit that 6 flat at the end of all that. So just that one day I was dead, I guess. And then a long run of 15. Usually when I'm hitting these like 12 to 15 mile days, it's not all in one stint. Like I'll warm up, use the bathroom or something, and then do 10 or so of it, use the bathroom, do the last couple or something like that. I think ultimately that's not the most beneficial thing to do, but it also probably helped me actually do it and get the miles in. So it's not perfect, but I hear this a lot too with running, and it's definitely advice I would give, that I'd rather have a bunch of B+ days than like one A+ day and then you're hurt. So that was kind of the thought process there. Week 11, hit 62. So that might be the highest I've hit during this. It's definitely the highest at this point. That might be peak total. For most of these weeks, I'm running all 7 days, unless it's one of those kind of bump down weeks. Hit another infinity. That's my favorite workout for coaching cross or track distance runners, really, from probably 800 up. We went 850, 820, 8, 730, 7, 620, 549s for 7 total. I remember running that with one of the boys on the team at the end, and he definitely could have stayed with me, but I shut him down after 6 because he hadn't been doing that many miles yet. He's faster than I am, but those were in those nice Nike Next Percent marathon shoes too. So that was the first time that I got to go really fast in them for an extended period of time, because that one 15-mile planned day never ended up really coming to fruition. I also did a 21-mile day for my only 20+ day of the training block. I only planned on 20, but running that one extra mile put it in my like top 3 farthest days ever, I think. And I think it was actually the most I'd ran in one day. because the previous marathon I talked about, um, I had to walk a lot during it because it was like a trail marathon. So I think that was probably the most I've ran in one day. I switched shoes like halfway through, and my knees did hurt after that too. But that was more because I did the first 9 or so of the 21 on our gravel road. So that really kind of gets to like the front kind of bottom portion of my knees and puts pressure on those. I think if I would have went to like a trail for the whole thing, like a nice flat, like buffed out dirt trail or something, I could have done it a little bit easier. Um, Week 12, that was a bump down to 27. Um, Took an off day. I actually took, I think, 3 off days during this, and I put that I had very bad heel pain during this. I must have had to take those days off, but I can't remember I don't remember this day, but I do have marked down that the day before I was in these shoes again, where I got the heel pain the first time. So, like I said, nice shoes. That something just didn't sit with my foot. I guess I don't know. I'm not retiring them or anything. I would still go do a couple miles in them, but I have written down that I did like an 8-mile kind of fast day, but right before that. So that, I'm sure that's what caused it. And it was in a bump down week anyway. So the goal was to keep it healthy. So we only did 27. I say only 27 as that's nothing compared to the 60s. However, that's probably about what I ran in like high school. So it's crazy how much more we get to now. If I would know what I know now in high school, I would definitely try to hit like 40s, 50s. I just didn't know. So in week 13, my main workout of the week was a 3 by 2 miles. So like do 2 miles, rest for like 5 minutes, 2 miles, rest for 5 minutes, 2 miles. And I was trying to hit that 6:52 pace. I had tried this last year around this time, training for a half marathon, and it didn't go great. This time went way better. This was the first time where I was like, "Oh man, I'm in shape for this. Like I can probably do this, or at least it seemed possible." It always seemed like 3 hours flat was going to be kind of a iffy if it was possible, but this was the first one. I was like, maybe. The rest of the time, I think I was just kind of like talking myself into it being possible. But anyways, I hit 3:15 for 2 miles, which would be 6:37-ish pace. 12:55, so that would be like 6:27.5, 6:27, 6:28, and then 12:45. So that'd be like 6:22 pace per mile. So that was way better than when I tried it in the past. This is actually the first time I even completed this workout, so it was infinitely better. Because last year when I tried to hit 13 for each one, and I only got through 2 of the 3, and this time I did all 3 and faster even, and I sped up as I went. And then this is right after the school got shut down for our extended spring break. That obviously turned into the rest of the year. So I put a focus on getting more hills in because running around the school it's completely flat. And Cleveland's not a super hilly course from what I know, but it does have a couple. So I went out to Dillon State Park and did a hilly fartlek. So basically, anytime I saw an uphill, I ran hard up it. Anytime I was going downhill, I eased off for 12 miles. Hit 63. So that's the highest I went during this training block. I remember doing one extra to get to 63 because then I could say I went over 100 kilometers in a week. So 100K in a week. So that was like my peak miles. I scaled it back a little bit. And went 55 for week 14. I did a time trial mile on like a gravel trail with a hill, so I didn't expect it to be my fastest thing ever, and hit 5:39, which was again faster than what I expected. I was expecting like 6 minutes for gravel and a hill, so I could tell I was getting in shape. Knowing myself running, I know that I kind of plateau, and then oh, Anna's home. What I was saying though is, I know kind of at some point when I make it far enough into like the block, I'll just get into better shape. So it kind of just snaps and there's like a level up at that point. So that's when I could tell. And then hit a 13 miler that week too. I think it was this week that the marathon officially got canceled because I noticed I stopped keeping track of what week it was. So this would be 15. And I set my sights on, I was going to do this virtual half marathon on the 19th that I mentioned at the very beginning. So for that, I tried to do, I'm going to mute it first. So that week I tried 3x5K. So I said before I couldn't even do like the 3x2 mile. So this was even another step up. And I was aiming for, I wrote down like a 20:30 for each one. And I ended up hitting like 19:57, 19:52. And the last one I did on a hillier section, and it was like 20:30 something. So it was another instance. I'm like, okay, I know I'm in shape. But that was again on a scaled down week. So that was 40 miles. And then the next week's the last one going into a half marathon time trial, virtual race, whatever you want to call it, by myself on that Sunday. So this one, I took the Monday off. On Tuesday, I did 2 by a mile, and 6:20 was the goal. I went even a little bit quicker than that. And then I did 2 by 800, and like 3:08 was the goal, and I went a little quicker than that. So I knew I was in pretty good shape. And that was the exact workout I did before the Athens half last year, and it worked out pretty well. So that's why I picked that one again. Next day I did 6 and then 5. I like to take a day off 2 days out from the race. And then just the day before I did 3, where I just kind of did a little shakeout jog, did some strides like I mentioned before, find the speed in your legs. And then that Sunday, I had Anna and my parents help me for that time trial. I ran around like OUZ like 6 or 7 laps for 13.1. And I ended up being like 30 something seconds off from my PR by myself. So I'm fairly confident that in a race with other people and how competitive I am, that I would have beat my PR, I think, by a pretty solid amount, actually. I remember with Athens last year, I purposely started like slower than I thought I could run because I'd never ran that race that far before. And I tried the same thing here, but I must have just been like so ready to go, so pumped up for it, especially given the circumstance of my other race getting canceled. I really wanted to like prove that this was worth it, I think, or something. I went out like 15 seconds fast, not on purpose or anything, for my first one, and that didn't come back to bite me for several miles. I thought I just had like some banked time, and then I remember around mile like 8 or 9, like the wheels were just coming off, and I was doing everything I could to hold it at like a close to PR pace, but it fell apart too much at the end. I think if I was just on like a flat trail, even by myself, like if I would have went to the Lure City bike path or something, could have maybe even squeaked under PR there. My PR is 127.47 for the half, which is 640 pace. And I ended up running like a 128.23, which is like 645 pace. So I was close, like I said, but just a little off. The week after, so that would be last week, I think. Well, no. The week after, I took a couple days off, and then I took the miles to just whatever felt decent. I did like 2 miles, 3 miles for 11 total in the week. Hardly anything compared to the 60. A lot if you're just starting out, but about a sixth of what I'd hit. And then I knew I was in really good shape, so I was gonna try to get like 2 more weeks in and try a 10K time trial to PR in that. But last, I think Tuesday, I was running and I pulled a muscle in my calf, so that kind of ended the whole thing, and it kind of was the training block's way of saying, okay, we're done here. Take some time. So I am now in the process of taking like 10 to 14 days off, and we're going to look at restarting hopefully by next Monday. The calf pain went away for a few days, came back for a few days, and it's still a little iffy. So that's nothing that should sideline me for too long, knock on wood. But this is where I have to start thinking, okay, when do I want to plan my next race, not knowing if they're going to happen in late July, early August? And even if so, 5K, 10K, something that's more along the lines of what I'm better at, or do I go back to the marathon, or do I scale down? Like I mentioned, I want a mile PR. So that's what I'm going to be thinking about in the next week or so. Okay, like I said, this was just an idea I got from another YouTube channel. If nothing else, it's just good for me to kind of talk it out and see what worked and what didn't. I think the 2 up, 1 down week system saved me from getting this injury earlier, but it also might have capped the potential a little bit. But I'm glad I did it ultimately. I might have to do that in the future, that or not do those like 9-mile jumps up. And I know I need to just, if I'm not getting faster, trust it's going to happen. Because if you remember from like 2 weeks to like 2 weeks apart, I couldn't hit a couple miles at marathon pace to where I was doing like 9 easily. And it just, you eventually click like in your training plan, your body, and you level up and you hit kind of where you want to be. So, all right, I'll go ahead and wrap up here. Hopefully this was helpful if you watched. Like I said, it's something that I would like to do, I think, in the next training block too, and maybe we'll talk out in a week or so, like planning for the next one. Maybe that'll be interesting. All right, hope everybody has a good night. We'll see you.